back to DIY Art Lessons. Today we're focusing on color, and we're going to have a fun exercise that's going to help you understand color without having to plod through theory. We'll talk about a little theory as we go along. Color theory is important just for understanding how to mix things, but it's the act of this exercise that's going to be really fun. So get ready. You're going to need your own paints. Whatever you have at home is just fine. I will be using my oil paints. I love oil paints because when you mix them up, they stay wet for a long time, so you can go back and forth and use one color in one area and it'll still be there if you want to bring it into another area. And we're going to paint clouds today. I love painting clouds. They're fun. They're one of God's most beautiful gifts to us. They float by and catch light in these incredible ways, and I'm going to show you how to give them some of that airy quality, because if you think about it, clouds are really just water droplets suspended in air, and I think what makes them so beautiful is they're filtering light constantly. It's really all made out of the same substance, and we're going to, in our painting, make it out of the same colors, the same paints, and that's going to give our sky harmony and a naturalistic feel. So get your paints together, and we're going to spend a little time mixing first before we even begin painting. So make sure you have a palette, and I would use a palette knife if you have one. Here is my palette knife I'll be using today, but you could just use a plastic knife if you don't happen to have a palette knife. It's nice with a palette knife because you have this little crook, and that gives you a little more angle to better reach down to your palette, but whatever you have on hand will work great. Let's get started. So for today's exercise, I'm going to have you mix up 3 pairs of paint. You're going to have 6 total little puddles of paint when we're done. First thing we're going to think about is value. Light is 1, medium is 2, or dark is 3. And for each light, medium, or dark, we're going to have one that is cooler and one that is warmer. And that just means cools feel like coolish colors like ocean, blues and greens. Warms tend to be reds and yellows like fire or the sun. So for each one, we're going to have a light color that's warmish and one that's cool, and they're very similar. Medium that's warm and one that's cool, and a dark one that's warm and one that's cool. Now here's a few parameters that are going to help this exercise work well. We're going to keep those 3 values, light, medium, and dark, very similar. Instead of having a wide value range from, if you had a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being your lightest value and 10 being your blackest black, we're going to keep them about 3, 4, and 5, because we're working in the sky. We're going to keep it kind of light, and we're going to keep them very similar. That's going to help us get the base of the painting going. Later on, if you want to add something that's super light as a highlight, or something that's a punch and a little bit darker, you can do that at the end. But while we're working, we're going to keep our value range tight and close together. The other thing we're going to do is keep the colors themselves very similar. Instead of having bright pink or warm and then a serious blue, we're going to have our blue sort of close to the warmth and have a little bit of warm in it, and our warms are going to have a little bit of cool in them. So they're also going to be unified, harmonized, and similar to one another. So let's get started. Let's take a look down at the palette. So I'm very simply going to put out some white, and this is titanium white. Maybe I'll put out a little bit more because I don't want to have to remix these colors. So I want you in your mind to picture a sky, a beautiful sky, maybe a sunset, something you've seen recently. Pick out some colors. I think I will make a reddish sky, sort of pink colors that lean maybe a little bit towards orange. So I'm laying out on my palette a cadmium red medium, and then just a cadmium orange. And for my blue, I'm going to put out both a cobalt and an ultramarine. You can see my color selection here. I have blues that go from here to here because it's really hard to mix a primary color. So if you have a cobalt blue, it's different than an ultramarine blue, which is different than a French ultramarine blue. Those are a little more warm, which is different than a cerulean blue, which is different than a manganese blue. And you can maybe approximate them a little bit, but you can't really mix a primary very well. So you almost have to just have it available in the tube. So here is my ultramarine. Oh, here's a little trick. I like to have medium in my paint just to loosen it up. So I will often add the medium first to the white, because the white's going to spread into everything. Okay, so start by making a blue. This is going to be your sky blue. And I'm going to start with the dark. And I'm going to call that my sky color, and adjust it till I feel like it's about where I want my sky to be. So that looks like imaginary sky to me. That's an average blue. And since I started with the dark, I can kind of lighten it easily just by adding some white to the sky. And then make my medium. And I can work out exactly how much I want to do from that. Here is my light. And then play with these for a little bit until you get them even, sort of a nice even stepping stone. So for me right now, and now I will work on making some warm petals. I'm actually going to intentionally allow the blue that's on my dirty palette knife to remain there, just to kind of harmonize the two colors to start with. So I'm making a warm color, and it's maybe a little more orange than I want to start with. So you can have lovely oranges in your skies, but I might make a little more red in there. And here is my example of, I'm going to pull a bunch of this out and set it aside so that I don't have to use my entire tube of red to make that more red. That feels better to me. And now this is far darker than I want it, so I'm going to add a little white. Pairs, dark, medium, light, and I've made warm and cool, but I want them to be a little bit more similar. So I'm gonna just sort of like the old ad for Reese's peanut butter, where you get your peanut butter in your chocolate, or is it chocolate in your peanut butter? We're gonna put a little blue in the pink and a little pink in the blue and see what we get. So there's the pink, and we're gonna add a little bit of blue to it, and then I'm gonna take blue and add a little bit of pink to it, so that it still looks blue, but is walking down towards the pink. You can't measure this like 3/8 of a tablespoon. You're just visually finding the color you need. Now we're going to get down to painting, and you're going to use your imagination for this, and we're just going to have fun. I have a whole bunch of different brushes because I want to keep my paints clean and pure. So instead of using the same brush and noodling around in the different puddles, I might just use a different brush for each color. I also have different sort of sizes and options for things like that. So first thing though I'm going to do is give myself a little bit of just a drawing so that I know where to place my colors. This is going to be really easy because we've pre-mixed our colors. It's almost like paint by numbers, but they're your paint, so it's your painting. But let's try to imagine clouds that are doing something puffy. I don't know what they're doing. So picture some clouds that I've sort of seen. Maybe there's some sort of, let me think for a sec, just visualize something beautiful. Those billowing clouds that are growing and one on top of another, or maybe something you've painted. Let's see, and imagine which direction the light is coming from, so there's some consistency like that. So let's see, just something beautiful like a growing building cloud, and you've got like here's one, and maybe there's this wonderful dark shadow. I'm going to put some cross hatchings to sort of show where my lights and darks are, and this is kind of getting soft back there. Maybe there's wisps behind it that are doing something different, going in a different direction. Maybe something down here, another cloud perhaps, maybe a darker one that's behind, or sometimes there's these horizontal clouds underneath. You make it up. It's totally your vision. Now stop, and I want you to think about what are your light areas, what are your dark areas, and I want you to sort of draw those in a little bit. So I sort of did that over here. This is going to be dark, kind of find some more of those. Let's call all of this is going to be dark. Think about that's going to be the sky. We're going to catch some light over there, but then this might be dark underneath. Maybe, here's a question I like to ask with the clouds. What percentage of the cloud is in light? Is it 50-50? Is it 50% light, 50% dark? Is it 10% light and 90% dark? That would be much more dramatic. Or is it mostly light and just, 20% dark? What is the percentage? And that helps me in my mind while I'm painting. So I'm going to go for 15 to 20% light, give or take. So this will up here just have a little bit of light hitting there, a little light hitting there. And this might be my medium. Back here, I'm going to call that light. I just wrote an L. Right, I'm just going to now, I'm going to just lay some of that blue sky color in, kind of working with negative space around where my clouds are going to be. And I can paint over this. This is really just a first layer. And I do my layers with oil paints right away. See, I'm drawing the cloud with the sky. And up here. And sometimes, see, I've just dragged the same color blue from down here up there. Sometimes you can make the sky feel bigger. If you allow a shift in the sky color, there'll often be a shift from looking straight up down to the horizon, dramatic shift. I'm dipping into the darkest color that I have, but the one that was mixed with the pink. So it's a little bit toned down, and that's going to be my sky color. my cloud color down here. There's some of the cloud, big heaviness at the bottom of that cloud. Maybe it comes up into here a little bit. Maybe it shows up somewhere else. The rest of these I'm going to leave as mediums. Back into that same color. I think this cloud here might keep a little more airy. This is going to stay dramatic and dark down here. And it might be dramatic and dark down here. And they're very similar, right? You can hardly tell the difference, but when I paint that all the way across, you're definitely going to be able to see that difference. And do you see how I'm not blending and mushing the areas? I'm letting my color touch color, right? And here I have not yet I just haven't painted it yet. There's a gap there. Don't stop and allow that gap to remain, or you'll have to remix the color later. You've got to define that edge, but at the same time, don't mushy it like this. Like, make this a decision. This is going to end. Maybe it has a little wiggle to it. Maybe it's straight, but don't just sit there and lick it to death. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. Don't just go like this, licky, 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 until you completely blur the edge. You might do that in one place, but just do it for a moment in one place. If you are going to do it, make it a variation between soft and hard edges, but don't lick everywhere, because it's like cheating, but it's so indecisive. It's really hard to see what's going on. So here we're going to put some more mediums in. And I'm using kind of the tip of the brush sometimes for these smaller things, or you could just get out a smaller brush, which might make sense too. We'll leave a few spots for light to come in there. Light on one side, shadow on the other, so I'll bring it up on the right-hand side in this painting. And then this whole area is going to be medium, but I might, for a change, dip into my more pink medium. Wow, that's really pink. And I don't really like it that pink, so right away I'm going to take that off of my brush. I've mixed some more pink into this because it's all just solid blue. If we mix some of its friend, it's the pink, in with that, it really gives a naturalistic feel to that solid blue. So we've got warm in our cool, cool in our warm, peanut butter in our chocolate, chocolate in our peanut butter. Makes it beautiful, makes it that sense of naturalistic light in our painting. So I'm bringing some of this pink and blue around down here. I'm leaning a little bit towards the pink land because we're up top, or maybe it's catching some of those beautiful sunlight rays. hard for me to see it up close. You guys can actually probably see it better than I can. I'm gonna take a step back and see how it looks. So you guys do that too, take a break. So I hope you took a look at your painting, and you're the editor-in-chief of your painting. You're in charge. So don't accept something that's not quite right. Pretend it's somebody else's painting and you looked at it and you're like, oh, it's really great. You could say nice things about it. You should say really nice things about it. Find the good things that are working in your painting, because you don't want to ruin the good things. You don't want to go over. A lot of times people tend to go back into the best part of the painting because that's where they're attracted to, that's where your eye is drawn, but then they'll keep working on that and you're just ruining it. If it's working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's working, just let it be. But ask yourself, okay, so if there's just one or two things that, you know, I wish it could be a little more of this or that or the other thing, go ahead and take a minute and we're gonna make some of those changes. So when I looked at mine, these are some of the things that I didn't like. I don't think I even painted that. I hadn't noticed that when I was up close. And this, I didn't really make much of a definition. I'm not sure what's happening there. But one of the things I didn't really like, well, one huge thing I didn't like is I don't like my sky color. It doesn't do anything. It's way too similar to the cloud colors. So I'm gonna make up a blue that I like that's a little different and work with the blue of the background sky. And the other thing is all of this doesn't seem to do much of anything for me. So I might try and add some, I don't know, some patterns, some variation, add some darks, do something down there. So I've got it in my head what I'm gonna do, and then I can just execute it. You kind of have to have your goal, your direction in mind in order to get there. And that is a life lesson as well as a painting lesson. So let's make up some sky blue. For me, you right now might be going in another direction. You might look at yours and be like, well, that's the best sky I've ever done. And then what you ought to do is do another. Start another one, if that's where you're at. And make sure you show this one off and put it up where you can look at it for a few days and revel in the beauty that you've just created. That's really important, to look at your own work. And it'll speak to you. Your own work will speak to you over time, and you'll see, you know, yeah, I really like this one. This is good. I'm going in a good direction. Or you'll be like, yeah, well, it's good enough. But and remember, we're telling a story about the world around us, not just about us. So try, you know, maybe go outside, look out the window, go look at some skyness around you and see how sky speaks to you. Really, that didn't really change it hardly at all, did it? So sometimes you can lie to yourself and say, yeah, I just changed it, but be honest, be true and say, I thought I was going to change it, but man, that's still like exactly the same. Now this one is a change. You could argue whether it's a good change or a bad change, but it's definitely a change. And there I made a little extra divot there just to kind of make some variation. Like I said, I desperately needed some variation. And you guys, again, can see better than I can how that blue is working. Is it working with the colors? Does it feel good with those colors, or is it like clash and not go with them? You can see that better than I can. I'm going to take a step back. I'm not sure I like that. What if that sky were more of a greenish sky? Sometimes skies get green. I might try that. See if I like it. Maybe I wouldn't like it. I don't really know. Well, let's experiment. It's just paint. It's not going to hurt you, so you can't go wrong. If I mess it up, I can always put something back close to this. I just kind of knocked it in anyway to start with. What do you guys think? I can't see it yet. So before I paint too much more, I'm going to step back and I'm going to have a look at it. Yeah, it's a little too green, but that was kind of fun to try and also to see how bold your changes can be. If you're going to make a change, make a real change. Don't just make a baby change. Make a good, solid change. You know what I think? I think the sky needs to come up more. Like this whole thing needs to be sky. And I'm just going to try a different color here. You know what I think? I think I'm going the wrong direction. I think it needs to be lighter down there, not darker. How's that for a change? Okay, wiping it off altogether. You know what I like about this being light down here? It's often lighter on the horizon, and it allows the darkness of this heavy cloud to sit against that. Yeah, I'm putting my medium that I've mixed up, medium color that I mixed up earlier. I still haven't painted that little guy there. I kind of need to slow down and do that, but then I try to carry that brush stroke out so that it feels like it's behind it, not like a big circle or a halo around it. Try to define that edge, nice crisp edge here. And I think it's looking better. The more similar I bring the sky to the cloud, I think it's actually working better. Too pink, like a little sunlight hitting back there. That's pure, the pink before I mixed it with the blue. Just little moments of that. I think it's a little much back here. Could use it up here. But down in this sea of dark, I think I'm going to have to go for the one that has a lot of blue mixed into it. Still the light, but it's light with blue in it. This is just using your imagination, where you might see some highlights on a billowy cloud, or maybe there's a little wispy that's like growing and coming out of one of these. I'm using the lightest light with just the blue. And you can kind of just, it's so much easier because the colors are all there, they're all harmonizing together. You can just sort of play with them, make some stripy clouds, some clouds coming from behind, and they drift up there. Maybe I'm going a little too crazy and somebody needs to come in and tell me to stop. You're gonna have to do that for yourself. Got a little more pink in this lightest light, and see if I can put a dab of pink here and there and there. I think this is looking pretty good, but I might do one more get back and make sure it's right where I want it there, like a little eye candy. Now would be your time if you want to say, add just the lightest, like a moment that's just getting more of a glint than somewhere else. Now would be the time to allow yourself that range in your value. So now I'm just kind of laying those colors on like that, just letting it come off the brush rather than scrubbing it or mushing it around and noodling it around. I'm just trying to let it come off the brush. So you really have to have enough paint on the palette to do that. If you've run out of paint on your palette, you can't pick it up and get it on the brush. I'm going to take a look at my painting, see if I like it. You guys tell me what you think. I decided I want a little more punch from it, so I'm going to add that. My paints are still out on my canvas, makes it super easy. I'm not going to add a lighter white. I like the value range, but I just want more of the lightest colors that I have. So I'm going to allow a little bit more of this pink coming in here, and even just sort of dragging it in places, even letting it be thick. It's more of the pure pink that I made up before I even mixed it with the blue. Maybe some of it trails. Maybe that's a little too much right there. Got a little carried away. Oops. I tried to wipe it off, I just smeared it. Actually use a brush would be a good idea. Yeah, I like that better, just like that. Maybe I better look before I wreck it. You guys tell me what you think. Need some highlight. This whole area of dark is too dark and heavy. What if some of that blue comes in here so it's not quite as heavy? Comes in through there. Now that's too blue, it needs some pink to balance it, and I've already got that on the canvas pre-mixed. Whoops, too pure. Too pure. Isn't it funny, the purity is, once you're this close, just the subtlest change makes this much better. Makes a huge difference. There, I'm liking that. Maybe you better look at it before I go and ruin it. And put some blue into that, darken it a hair. Let me take a look at this. You know, I think I like that. I just took a step back and I looked at it and I thought, that's it. It's doing about, I'm happy with it. If I'm happy with it, that's all we need to please today. Maybe another day we could worry about other people, but today this is just for us. I'm happy with it. I hope you're happy with it. What I really hope is I hope you're happy with yours. I know you're probably just listening to this first. Take your time, do a few of them, do lots of them, take a break, go outside, get inspired, look at some real clouds that are out there and floating past. I know you have clouds somewhere, even if it's a gray day, then you're gonna mix up, instead of these pinks and blues, mix up some grays, yellow and purple together might make a nice gray. Just go share the story of the sky that you're seeing, and let some of that beauty come through and come into your home. I hope you enjoyed this. Look for us. Hey, if you liked this video, please click the like button, and if you want to see more, subscribe. If you're subscribing to our channel or liking our videos, it helps me to be able to do more. Share it with your friends. And check out DIY.com. There's even opportunities for membership there. Thanks. So here's my palette when it was all done and finished. You can see some of the mess there. Good, happy mess. And then the palette should be reflected on the painting, and you'll see that it is. And if you guys were curious about the painting that was behind me, I just finished this the other day. It's quite large. I don't know, 7 feet long, 6 feet across, I think.